How do you?
Well, I mean, is that on?
Children with parents in prison are 5 to 6 times more likely to be involved in the criminal justice system. The collateral damage to families with an incarcerated member can possibly have a greater effect on society than to not incarcerate. I have studied the criminal justice system at Indiana Wesleyan University, where I am a social work major. I hope to persuade you in the social issue of incarceration in the United States. First, I'll explain the need for incarceration. Second, I'll explain the plan for alternate solutions. And finally, I will explain the practicality of alternate solutions. Now that you understand my purpose, let's begin. Crime in the United States has been an issue since the country was first established. From owning people to selling property, to killing the fellow man, to not paying taxes. Criminals have shaken the roots of society for centuries with rebellious acts. So what are we to do with people just roaming our streets and doing criminal acts? Incarcerate them, of course, so they will be punished for doing wrong and making our society a safer one by putting them away. The only problem is that most of the criminals are part of a family. There has to be a better way to stop the cycle of crime. The toll that the family takes can be emotionally and physically harmful. This can leave an erasable mark for future generations to go through. A cycle of crime can be caused by the psychological damage produced by an incarcerated family member on their loved ones. But the one thing in common for almost every law-abiding citizen and criminal is that they all have families. These criminals are not just cold-blooded rebellious villains. They are parents, grandparents, siblings, children, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. Criminals do not just hide away by themselves and commit crimes. Most acts of crime are without a doubt selfish and inconsiderate towards the people it will affect. Some criminals do what they do to provide for their families. By no means does that make the crime any less of one, but it puts a different angle to it. Kiva Miller wrote an article in a child and adolescent social work journal. The article gives a detailed inside look of the psychological effects of children with incarcerated parents. The possible effects are maladaptive and disobedient behaviors such as withdrawing emotionally in school, truancy, pregnancy, drug abuse, diminished academic performance, and disruptive behavior may surface when youth experience emotional and psychological problems. Children seek social cliques that are more accepting of them, but unfortunately, often negative influencing. It is common for this population to join gangs and become involved in a perennial delinquent activity that leads to the involvement in the juvenile justice system and perhaps the adult system. New generations of children become at risk intergenerational incarceration. Approximately 50% of youths in the correctional system have a parent in the adult system. Christopher Weidman of Yale University explains that incarceration of a spouse increases the risk of divorce and separation. Weidman also explains that the effects can alter how the parent disciplines the child. Incarceration very much affects families. For some families, it is beneficial to have a family member out of the home in order to have a healthy environment. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, substance abuse, alcoholism, neglect, and many more factors can contribute to a child or spouse needing the parent out of the home for a better life for themselves. But either way, the loss of a relationship, such as a father figure or a loving mother, is produced because of the withdrawal of that person. The society and culture then becomes broken from the lack of needed connections and relationships. Doris Layton McKenzie of Pennsylvania State University and Douglas B. West of the University of Maryland state that the most direct way to reduce prison population is by diverting more offenders into the non-custodial alternatives such as community service, community corrections, or intermediate sanctions programs, which were intended to reduce costs in prison populations. Programs that correct the criminal offenders are most effective if they are skill-oriented, and also based on cognitive behavior or cognitive theoretical models. In order to solve the issue of overpopulated prisons, the incarceration rate needs to lower. There needs to be a high portion of offenders that spend less time in the prison, and effective programs, treatment, and rehabilitation for the offenders after being released before laying a path of positive choices opposing the criminal acts. Missing parts of a family can leave an unfixable mark. Anger, depression, and brokenness can lead to rebellion and act out on the emotions that a family member or members may have. Children without either or both parents can take a toll on their childhood life and affect their adult lives. Wives or husbands will begin to possibly resent their spouse for leaving them to do everything. Fathers and mothers are left out to be a single parent, taking on both roles. These cycles throughout time have damaged families, therefore affecting the communities and branching out into our nation. The flawed system of incarceration can be replaced with a logical system of correctional programs that could also cut the costs. Incarceration has a heavy effect on families and communities. Beginning with the root of the issue, which is the cause within the system, can solve everything. The system itself should not be carelessly thrown out, though. I've explained the need of incarceration, the plan to have a better system of incarceration, and the practicality of having a better system of incarceration. I hope that after hearing the effects of our current system of incarceration, that you will, too, support alternative correction programs. My references are Brahman, McKenzie, Miller, and Weidman. Thank you for coming.